It's a Mailbag Monday. We've got your questions about taking star players to arbitration, Mets pitcher Calvin Ziegler, and what to look for when you go to a minor league baseball game. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, baseball writer and podcaster. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more with the official sportsbook of Locked On. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So, mailbag, as we do every single Mondays. All of these questions come from listeners of the show. If you have a question for the mailbag, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com, or drop your questions in the Locked On MLB Prospects Discord. Link is in the episode description. Link is in the show notes. The first question comes from a lot of people in the Discord. Big topic of conversation this week was MLB arbitration and teams sending guys to arbitration and either winning or losing cases. Over 200 players qualified for arbitration this year, which was a record, and about 33 of them did not agree with their teams and went to arbitration. Some of those cases are done, some of those cases are not. But because this came up as a topic of conversation, and specifically it came up around Max Fried. Conversation for Atlanta Braves fans are Max Fried is going to be a free agent after the 2024 year, and you have to figure out re-signing him because, obviously you did not keep Freddie Freeman, you did not keep Dansby Swanson. You've extended a lot of young guys on this team, but the only pitcher that you have signed to an extension is Spencer Strider. And so the conversation was, why would you take Max Fried to arbitration over $1.5 million? Because Fried filed at 15, the Braves filed at 13.5, and the Braves ended up winning that case. They lost the case last year. They won the case this year. So real quick, how arbitration works is if you have more than 3 years of service time or more than 2 and are a Super 2 player, which is a whole nother conversation, and you do not have a contract for the upcoming season, the club and the player have to agree on a salary number. That has to be done by a date in mid-January. If the player and the club do not agree on a salary number for the upcoming season, that's when you go to salary arbitration. And the whole thing is based on comparisons and precedent, right? So it's based on salaries of players of similar production over recent years, as well as based off of what you made if this is your second or third year of arbitration or fourth year for a Super 2, what you've made in past years. So a couple things end up happening here. One, if you get injured and miss time or have a bad season the year before you go to arbitration, that has repercussions for multiple years because it usually bases off of your previous arbitration salary. Trevor May of the Mets is one of the guys I can think of that had if I remember right, he had a rough year going into his arbitration year, and so that had repercussions down the line because it's always based off of the previous number. But the thing that people forget about when you see this and you're like, well, why take Max Fried to arbitration over $1.5 million? Or look at like Christian Javier. Is in his first year of arbitration with the Astros. He filed at 3.5. The team filed at 3. They're like, why take your star player, to arbitration over this smaller amount? The thing you have to understand is the numbers that the players and the team give the arbitrator are usually not what they gave each other. Because the way that arbitration works, this panel of independent arbiters hears the case and picks one of those two numbers. They don't compromise. If one number is $100 million and one number is 5, they can't say, well, we'll split the difference. It's going to be the 5. Nobody's ever got anything near 100. That's the issue with arbitration, is you pick one or the other. And so when you are giving a number to the arbitrator, if you are the player, you are incentivized to come down off of your request closer towards the middle ground. If you are the team, you are incentivized to come up on the offer closer to the middle ground between the two teams. So Max Fried and the Braves, $1.5 million apart. When they were negotiating with each other, it is very likely that they were more than $1.5 million apart, that they were $3 million apart, they were $4 million apart. The gap was bigger. The gap is always bigger in your negotiations versus the number that you file with the arbitrator. Now, what makes things tough is a lot of organizations recently, and the Braves are an example of this, to try to make things even for every player and not show favoritism and or not have issues down the road. Some organizations have become what are called file and trial, that we will negotiate up to the deadline. And then once the deadline is here and we both submit numbers, that's it. We're going to stop. We're not going to continue to negotiate, because you can reach a contract up until you sit for the arbitration hearing and skip arbitration. But a lot of organizations say, we don't want to set the precedent of we're going to give a number to the arbitrator and then continue to negotiate with you, because another player may want to negotiate. And if we don't want to negotiate with them, it makes things awkward. And remember, all of this stuff comes back to, like, every arbitration decision affects future arbitration decisions. So it's bigger than just your one player. In the case of Max Fried's also the union rep for the Braves. And so he is thinking about, I want to get the best deal possible so that fellow players get better deals in arbitration as well. There should be a much simpler system to this than arbitration, but right now that's kind of where we are. There's some really interesting things out there. The largest contract figure out there, Teoscar Hernandez, asked for $16 million. The Mariners countered with 14. Some of the really funny differences, Corbin Burns is at 10.75. The Brewers are at 10.01 million, which is weird. Luis Arraez, he had to give his number, and the Twins gave their number. He gave 6.1 million. The Twins gave 5 million. Then the Twins traded him to Miami, and Miami had to go to the arbitrator and make the case for the number the Twins gave. Miami did not have a chance to redo that number. They had to argue the $5 million number versus Arraez arguing the 6.1, and his side won, and he gets 6.1 million. So arbitration's a weird system, and we need to find something better. A lot of players understand that this is kind of a business thing, and a lot of the smart teams don't make the case against their player. They make the case based on the statistics and the precedent. So a lot of players understand it's a business. Not every single one of them does, and sometimes this can create animosity between players and organizations, depending on how it's treated. Jeremy in our Discord had a question about some Mets prospects, right-hand pitcher Calvin Ziegler and right-hand pitcher Bryce Montes de Oca. So Calvin Ziegler, 2021 second rounder out of high school, 16 games in low A last year, 4.44 ERA in 46 2/3 innings, 70 strikeouts, 13.5 per 9, to 35 walks, 6.75 per 9 with 3 home runs allowed. Stuff to note here, his arsenal, plus fastball, sits 94, can touch 96, has really good ride up in the zone. The curveball could be a plus curveball with some more development. It sits high 70s to low 80s, has, vertical break, like a 12-6 kind of shape. He just needs to get better at landing it for strikes. Didn't really have a third pitch. He added a splitter. It's kind of below average. And that's like, you see the command issues. It all comes back to repeating his mechanics, which kind of comes back to his strength. He needs the physical development because right now he's having to put so much effort into the mechanics and the velocity that it's messing with his control. So as he physically develops, I think that control is going to get better as he gets more size to his frame. He'll go to high A Brooklyn to start this year, and I'm hoping to see that walk number come down significantly. The other guy, Bryce Montes de Oca, 6'7", 265. Big boy, big health issues. 2018 ninth rounder out of Missouri, and yet did not debut until 2021. Did not throw his first pitch in professional baseball until May 2021. He had Tommy John in college, and between getting drafted in 2018 to his debut, obviously the COVID year, but also he had 4 different surgeries, blood clots and some other issues and things like that. When he's on, he's got a cutter, a sinker, and a slider. The sinker averages like 99, touches 102. Kind of stupid, right? 16 inches of horizontal break. The cutter sits around 95 miles an hour. He throws at about half the time. Has about 5 inches of vertical break to it. And then the slider, the sinker and slider are each about 1/4 the time, but has about 12 inches of horizontal break the other direction from the sinker. So it's a nice horizontal picture that he gives. Velocity is about 87 on the slider. Control issues in 44 games in the minors last year, or covering 51 in the third innings, 3.33 ERA, 80 strikeouts, so 14 strikeouts per 9 to 38 walks, 6.7 per 9. Didn't give up a single home run. So you like the stuff. You just need a little bit more refinement on the control. And a lot of that comes down to getting the feel because he just missed so much time. The physical development is obviously there. He's a big boy. You just kind of have to keep everything under control so that you can get some better control out of the picture. In just a minute, I want to get to Matt's question about some newer prospects and their likelihood of reaching the bigs. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. We're excited about our new sports betting partner for the Locked On Podcast Network because it's the #1 sportsbook in America and the only app you need at your Super Bowl party. They have a ton of great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. So download the FanDuel app now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. You can bet on everything from the money line, point spreads, who will score a touchdown, who will score first. There's tons of props out there for the Super Bowl. And the great thing is this app is not only safe, secure, and super easy to use, but you can get paid your winnings instantly as soon as the game is over. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. Okay, so regular listener of the show, Matt Logan on Twitter, sent me a question about which of these guys has the best upside and or the best path to being a big leaguer. And I believe this is trading card focused as kind of his inspiration here. But the 7 players were outfielder Drew Baker of the Tampa Bay Rays, shortstop Willy Vasquez of the Tampa Bay Rays, catcher Jimmy Crooks of the Cardinals, outfielder Jacob Marsee of the Padres, infielder Yendry Rojas of the Padres, and utility guy Kevin Kendall of the Mets. So looking at these guys, there's 4 of them that I like. I'm kind of separating them into a couple different tiers here. The guys that I like the most, Vasquez, Crooks, Marsee, and Kendall. Let's go through those guys real quick. So Willy Vasquez, 2019 IFA, got 113 games in low A last year. 256, 313, 410. 10 home runs, 40 extra base hits, 36 walks to 126 strikeouts, 25 of 28 on stolen bases. Defensively, he can stick at shortstop, and it's funny because in that IFA class, he was seen as the guy most likely to have to change positions to third base or second base or something like that. But it looks like he's going to be a plus defender, or above average or plus defender at shortstop. Offensively, the bat speed is above average. His max exit velo was like 112 last year. Power potential is kind of average. But he went from rookie ball to low A last year and kind of backed up a little bit as far as his statistics went. Slugging was the exact same. He had a 411 in rookie ball in 21 and a 410 last year. But his batting average dropped from 288 to 256 and is on base from 382 to 313. And it looked like it was issues with spin and chasing that spin. So a little bit of discipline to do there, but I still like the makeup. I still think he can be an above average offensive player and then again have an impact defensively. nothing is worse than average. Like everything is average or above average. Nothing is plus. But again, he's one of those complete, well-rounded packages of probably not going to be a star, but feels pretty likely to make the big leagues because he's just kind of good at everything. Catcher Jimmy Crooks from St. Louis. I really like Jimmy Crooks. 2022 fourth rounder out of Oklahoma. Had a great run in the College World Series. And got in 23 games in Low A Palm Beach last year. 266, 396, 468. 3 home runs, 8 extra base hits. 12 walks to 22 strikeouts. No stolen base attempts. Not a shocker. He's a catcher. But offensively, he has good power to the pull side. And he handles breaking stuff really well, which is a weakness for a lot of younger players. He's 20 years old, but still a younger player in the context of things. A little old for the level, but still a thing. So left-hand hitting catcher, not a thing you get as much of. So promising, especially with the power potential that we saw. The bat speed's really good, so he can handle velocity there. And then again, good at recognizing and hitting breaking pitches. Defensively, really good agility behind the plate, despite the speed not being fantastic. The arm is only kind of average, but his pop time's good. His release is really quick. And so it can kind of help him control the running game a lot better than a normal catcher with an average arm could do. So I like Jimmy Crooks for St. Louis. Outfielder Jacob Marsee of the Padres. Spoiler alert for when we get to, I think it's going to be Wednesday's show is the Padres farm preview. He's the best defensive outfielder in the Padres system. But 2022 second rounder out of Central Michigan. Got in 18 games in Low A last year. 254, 419, 463. 2 home runs, 9 extra base hits, 16 walks to 15 strikeouts, and 12 of 13 on stolen bases. Him and Crooks are the 2 guys I like the most on this list. His strike zone discipline is amazing. You can't he walked more than he struck out in both rookie ball and Low A last year. That is a very hard thing to teach. Fantastic strike zone discipline, probably the best in the system, which, he's going to, if he gets to play with Juan Soto, it's going to be fun watching those 2 guys on the same team. I'm not saying he has as good plate discipline as Juan Soto. I'm just saying both their approaches are similar as far as how good they are at seeing balls versus strikes and laying off of what's not a strike. The power, I think, is decent. It can get a little bit better. I want to say he's about 180 pounds or so. I think there's a little bit of physical development in there. Probably not a ton, but a little bit. And then again, best defensive outfielder in the system. So the floor is high for a Jacob Marsee. Probably going to go to high A to start the year in 2023. The fourth guy is Kevin Kendall for the Mets. Came out of UCLA, 2021 7th rounder. He played all over at UCLA. He was on the same team as Matt McClain of the Reds. You'll remember McClain played some center field as well. So he's played center field. He's played shortstop. He's played second base. The arm is only kind of average, but I think he'd be a plus defender in the infield at either of those positions and probably above average in center field because of that. Got in 31 games in 2021. I'll get to 22 in a second. 327, 421, 451. 1 home run, 10 extra base hits, 15 walks to 24 strikeouts, and 8 of 10 on stolen bases. So he had a wrist injury. I think he got 3 games at Low A St. Lucie before he got hurt and missed the entire season. It is from what I understand, it is the same wrist that he injured in 2020 and missed a whole or was on track to miss the entire season in 2020 with that wrist injury. So a little bit of concern there, but really good at making contact. Very good swing decisions. The power is getting better. I think part of that's going to be a little health as well. And then, like I said, plus defender in the infield, above average defender in center field because the speed is somewhere between plus and double plus. Question obviously is going to be how well does he come back? From what I understand, he went to the Arizona Fall League. He looked pretty decent there. And it's just going to be something where will he hit well enough to be an everyday regular, or will he be seen as a utility guy? I've seen reports on both. A lot of that depends on his 2023 going to be a big year. Again, probably going to start back off at Low A, but given that he's already 23, they may put him at high A to start off just to try to find him an age-appropriate level. A couple of the guys on that list real quick. Drew Baker for Tampa Bay, the outfielder. He's got a good bat. He's not great defensively, and Tampa Bay prioritizes defense a lot unless your power is stupid, and his power isn't necessarily stupid. And so I worry about his opportunities to move up in that system because they prioritize defense so much. Yendry Rojas for the Padres has high contact ability. I think the power could get to average, maybe even above average. He's probably not going to be a shortstop, probably going to play second base or third base, and it feels like he doesn't have the power profile for third base. So he's going to be a second baseman, kind of limits the overall ceiling as far as superstar power if you're looking at getting the card. And then Daniel Vasquez, the shortstop for Kansas City, I just haven't seen him play yet. He signed in 2022. Don't know a lot about him. It's hard for me to kind of project out what he's going to do, given the fact he hasn't even played any yet. In just a minute, we're going to get to when you go to a minor league game and you want to check out prospects, what should you be looking for? This is Tyler's question. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. I have been talking about this now for about a month. If you are trying to eat better, if January didn't work out well and you want to start over in February, that is fine by me. Try incorporating Built Bars into the routine. If you're trying to eat healthier because, one, they are good for you. Each Built Bar is around 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein. The flavors are fantastic. It's like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, covered 100% real chocolate. So you have the protein to keep you full. You have the chocolate to make it taste good. And the availability is now better because you used to have to go to Built.com and use a promo code and all that stuff and wait for them to come in the mail. But now you can buy them locally. If you have a Walmart in your town, and I've been to very few towns that don't have one, you can go to the pharmacy section, grab a box of Built Bars, a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, of double chocolate, or of coconut puff. If you're close to Sam's, you can run in and grab a 13-bar box of brownie batter or churro. So stick to your dietary preferences in 2023. Improve your diet with Built Bars. Go to Built.com or go to Walmart or go to Sam's. Okay, so regular listener Tyler sent me 2 emails on Saturday with some questions, and the second email was about, he said he's going to be going to some Inland Empire games to see the low A affiliate for the Angels. And what should he be looking for when he's checking out some of these players? So when I go to watch prospects, there's some general things that I look for from everybody, and then specific things based on position. So in general, and when you're there, it's better because you have so much more things you can watch than just wherever the camera's pointing. One, I look to see the athleticism of some of these guys. I just want to see what it looks like when they run. I want to see what it looks like when they throw so I can evaluate physically their bodies. 2, I'm looking for instincts. I love when I get to be in person at a game and I can see like, okay, the shortstop knows what is going to be thrown. He knows the signs between the catcher and the first baseman. How is he positioning himself from pitch to pitch? Does he understand what this type of pitch is going to induce from this hitter versus that type of pitch? So looking at the baseball instinct, same thing when you look at like a catcher. Things like the catcher corner of his eye, he sees the runner leaning a little bit, he's going to back pick the next time he receives the throw. Things like that, the instincts. I just look for that in general with everybody that I'm looking at. But then specifically, when I'm watching a pitcher, which is one of my favorite things to do, is I'm looking for, one, what did they throw? Kind of basic, but I want to know what pitches are they throwing. Are they living off of fastballs and mixing in some stuff every now and again? Are they living off of breaking and off speed and using a fastball to keep guys honest? And that's the second component, is how are they using what they throw to try to get guys out? What's the strategy? That's the pitchability we always talk about. What's the strategy for setting guys up off certain pitches and then fooling them with others or blowing stuff past them, things like that. I'm also looking at the delivery. I want to see how many moving parts are in that delivery. I want to see how much effort is behind it. Typically, a general rule of thumb is the more effort behind a delivery, the higher likelihood that you're going to have control issues, as well as the higher possibility that you're going to have injury in the future. Obviously, it's not perfect. Brusdar Graterol throws 100 miles an hour like he's playing catch with a teenager, and yet he had a significant injury. So it's not foolproof, but it's a pretty reliable indicator of how hard is this guy having to work to throw these pitches, and how is his control going to be, and is he at higher risk for injury than pitchers already are? Because pitchers are hurt all the time. There's no such thing as a pitching prospect. It's a common thing you hear because of development, because of injury, stuff like that. For a hitter, the things that I'm looking for is, one, when they go up there, do they have a plan? So has this hitter done a base level of research on this pitcher and what he does? When they go up there, does it look like they're trying to either situationally execute what they have to do, get the runner over, get the sacrifice, whatever they have to do, or do they look like they have a plan to face that specific pitcher? If they know that this guy likes to throw sliders down and away, are they set up in a way, and are they watching for that so they can prevent themselves from chasing that? So I'd like to watch what the hitter looks like they're trying to do at the plate, and to see if they're confused. Like, if you're going to strike out, that happens to everybody. I want to see, did you strike out because you got fooled? Did you strike out because that was a better pitch than you? Did they just completely surprise you? Like, I want to know why. I'm trying to look to see if I can figure out why. And you can tell from somebody's reactions when they got fooled on something or when they just got beat on something. So I want to see that. And then the actual swing. How smooth is the swing? How much work is in the swing? And how hard are they? Like, what kind of effort are they having to put into a swing to hit a home run, you know? Is it pulled? Can they go opposite field? That kind of stuff. I'd be careful about watching batting practice and making too many assumptions off of a guy based on batting practice. That's more so raw power than in-game power. Even Ichiro would crush home runs in batting practice, but in games, his in-game power was much lower because he was focusing on quality contact, getting extra bases, getting the ball in the gaps versus selling out for home runs. So defensively, I am looking for a couple things. One, when a ball is hit to a player, the reads, the routes, the reactions. So reminder again, the read is, do they see what it's doing correctly at the crack of the bat? The reaction is their movement in response to that read. So if you see the ball, if you're an outfielder and you see the ball is going over your head, but your first step is to step forward, that's probably a correct read and a bad reaction. You want to see how good the read and the reaction is, and then the route, the path to the ball. More of an outfielder thing than an infielder thing, especially like third base where it's almost all just instinct and reaction. But for the offensive players, I kind of want to see, does it look easy or does it look tough? I have watched guys like, let's say, third baseman Curtis Mead of the Tampa Bay Rays. I watched him in Montgomery last year, and I had a preconceived idea of where his defense was, and that it was not great at third, and he would have to move to first base. When I watched him in that game, he made quite a few very difficult plays at third base, whether it was a hot shot that he picked, whether it was a slow roller that he barehanded and fired to first, and he made them look very easy. And it prompted me to go back and look a little more at film and look a little more to see, have I been underrating his defense? Because those were very difficult plays, and he made them look very easy. The other question from Tyler, and it's the first email, was actually about me, which I don't usually do a lot of questions about myself on the show, but he asked me, what made me initially interested in prospects, and how long have I been covering this, and how has my judgment of prospects changed over time, and then a failed prospect that I'd love to have a do-over for their career. So the big thing out of that for me, my view of prospects, how that's changed over time is, I think I've come to appreciate more how hard baseball is. And I try to be as positive as possible on this show. And every now and then I'll get somebody in the YouTube comment or on a tweet or in an email be like, you're doing people disservice by making it sound like all these guys are going to make it. I'm like, well, the easy thing to say in my position would be the likelihood is that this guy doesn't make it, because the likelihood for any given prospect is that they don't make it. They don't make it to the big leagues, or if they do get there, they don't make a positive impact. I think 9% of all drafted players ever accumulate a positive WAR in the major leagues. And the actual odds of getting to the major leagues are below 50% for any round past the second. So I try to be positive as possible in this show, because baseball is a very hard game. And if you succeed 4 times out of 10 as a hitter, you're generationally great. And so I'd rather talk about what a guy does well than what a guy is bad at, or if a guy's not going to make it, Now, I will say the prospect that I've talked before about the prospect that I missed the most on. I thought Jason Hayward's power was going to be a lot better than it was. But the do-over, the failed prospect that I'd love to have a do-over for his career, I think it's Bubba Starling of the Royals. 2011 first-round pick, number 5 overall, was committed, I think, to Nebraska as a quarterback, also played outfield, also was a basketball star in high school, like 3 sports. And very, very good defender, very good athleticism, very good speed, as you could imagine from a former football player, a dual threat quarterback, but just never really seemed at the plate to put it together. He finally made it to the bigs. I want to say in, I think, 18 and 19 or 19 and 20, 994 fielding percentage, had like 1 error his entire time in the majors. He got 91 total games, but his slash line was 204, 246, 298, 5 home runs, 13 extra base hits, and he had 13 walks to 83 strikeouts. Career did end on a high note. He left AAA in 2021 to go compete in the Summer Olympics in Tokyo as part of Team USA and won a silver medal. When he got back, he went ahead and announced his retirement, and he's now a baseball coach. It's one of those things where I talked about this last week for the Royals show. The Royals have gotten pretty good at developing hitters, and I feel like if he had gotten there a few years later, if he was drafted in 2016 or 17 versus 2011, there's a really good chance that they maybe could have gotten his offense to the point where he could still be playing. And it's just one of those, like, right guy, wrong time. And so I kind of wish we could have that back, and I'd love to see an alternate universe where he's a couple years younger and he gets a do-over in Kansas City, and I think he probably would work. But from what I've heard, he's a really good baseball coach and teacher now. So happy for Bubba Starling that his career ended in a positive way with a silver medal at the Olympics. Fantastic week this week. We're previewing the National League West. Dodgers, Padres, Giants, Diamondbacks, Rockies, in that order. If you have questions for next Monday's mailbag, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. You can email us, lockedonmlbprospects@gmail.com, or drop your questions in the Discord. Link is in the episode description. Link is in the show notes. Until tomorrow's show, this has been Locked On MLB Prospects.